Hello, everybody, and welcome to the music ranking, rating, and reviewing podcast that we like to call Music Meltdown, in which we rate, rank, and review all different songs, albums, artist discographies, and whatnot. So we're talking about a big one, big kahuna burger here. We're getting Paul McCartney. As you may know, well, remember the Beatles. He's released a couple of albums after then. We're including Wings. We're not really including any of his other collaborative efforts. And as well, to make this a bit more manageable, we're only doing 22 releases. We didn't count the two half studio, half cover releases. As well, we didn't include Give My Regards, Give My Regards to Broad Street. And as I mentioned before, we weren't including any sort of covers or collaborative records. That got us down to 22, going from McCartney 1 all the way to not to Press to Play. God, no, I wish it was that short. We're going from McCartney 1 to McCartney 3. That being said, have the good old Cam here, Cameron. I saw he posted a McCartney list one time, so I was like, you know what, I'll ask if he wants on. As you
Yeah,
can tell.
yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of McCartney. I think he's well, my second favorite Beatle by a pretty uh decent sized margin. I used to not like him. I thought he was like a cornball who was only good with when he had other people around him, like John and George. But the more you think about it, he's a genius. Like even at his worst, he's still like leagues above a lot of other people. Sure, he's kind of corny sometimes. He makes the granny music and the whatever, but you know what? I like Paul McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney. But you know, I like most of his stuff, Wings and solo, but there's a couple I don't like, which we'll get into right now, Adrian.
He's got some shit, but just one more thing I want to mention. I liked Paul McCartney way more before doing this. My opinion on Paul dramatically lessened doing this experience because it is just so much material
Yeah,
and it is just a total drag.
I don't remember your opinion of him being that high to begin with, so this
It
should be
wasn't.
this should be something.
He's pretty firmly my third favorite Beatle because to say that I like
Yeah, out of
any
four.
Beatle, more to say that I like Ringo better than any other Beatle is kind of an insult to musicians as a whole. But yeah,
R
uh,
R
he's
R
pretty. He's pretty.
Ringo's a good drummer. He just doesn't he just didn't do good on his own, or that much good on his own. Paul did a lot of good on his own, but a lot of bad, so it evens
Like,
out.
I don't hate Paul, and my opinion on Paul is interesting because I don't really like him that much. I'll come out and say it. Most of the time, I don't get much authenticity in his music. He doesn't come across very genuine a lot of the time, but there is still a ton of stuff that I do really enjoy in this catalog. Just know it's going to take a while to get there.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but I disagree. I think
That's fine.
he does put a lot of soul and heart into his music, even if he's like the biggest like money maker in the music business,
Like,
or at least was for a long time. But he has been shallow, especially in a specific decade, which I'm not a fan of for McCartney personally. That was uh, his low point of musical creativity and output as a whole.
his shit era.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we're gonna do this to start out. We're doing 2 rounds of 6, and then we're going to tackle the top 10 one at a time. Cam's gonna go ahead and kick us off here.
All right. Um, these three are pretty bad. I can't defend these. I hate them so much. Minus a few decent songs here or there that I think they're bad products as a whole. My least favorite Macca album, my 22, is Press to Play. Yeah, it's just bad. This is like peak uh was this mid 80s when this came out? 86, 85? Something like that. It came out early to mid 80s and it sounds like it aged like milk. Paul is so corny on this, and not even in a charming way, to be honest. It's got every producer in the world on it. It doesn't have a voice, a unique style at all. It sounds like uh, an album you find at a you find in the freaking CD player at an 80s themed restaurant or something. It's just dull, dull as dirt. Speaking of dirt, my second least favorite Paul McCartney album is Flowers in the Dirt. A slight step up. There's some better songwriting on here, but same problem as before. The 80s sound ruins it. And the songwriting is, despite being better, still isn't great, minus a couple okay tracks here or there. And it feels long. Uh, uh, the one thing Press to Play has over this, Flowers in the Dirt, it it feels quick, as bad as it is, and it's still worse than Flowers in the Dirt, obviously, but at least it was quick. Flowers in the Dirt goes on a little longer than I wanted to, and it's doesn't benefit from it at all because the songs are kind of boring, minus a couple okay ones. And then my next one, my number 3 of 6, is his 2000 sort of a flop, but not really. Yeah, it kind of was a flop. Give me 1 second. I'm actually forgetting the name. Driving Rain. Driving Rain is my third least favorite. It's a bit better than the other two. It has it's a more rockin' sound, a more acoustic type sound, and not that 80s horse shit he was attempting to do back in the day. But it's still not great. It's also really long, and it has no right to be. It's also just a minor complaint, doesn't have anything to do with anything. The album cover is really bad. It's just like him with his hand out like this, with his hand in the air. And it's a really blurry JPEG image. I think I know what he was trying to do, like go for a early 2000s alt type thing, but it doesn't work, Paul. And speaking of 90s alt rock, um, well, this is late 2000s, but that style was still, sorry, early 2000s, but that style was still in the mainstream. The sound is pretty off. I give it more of a pass than the other two because it has a sound I prefer, but he doesn't do it great here. It's very just bland and dull, and it goes on for too long, and it's very dated and of its time. There's a couple of tracks I like. The title track I think is fun, and Your Loving Flame, but the rest, there's a 10-minute song on here called Rinse the Raindrops. Not a fan. It's really long, and it's just, you know, Paul doing going on and on his acoustic. And there's another song on here, Freedom, which I believe was a single that they put on last second. I'm not too sure. I'm making that up. I have no idea. That's probably the case. This one is not great either. It's just really, it's a propaganda song about fighting like for freedom because this is very, this is like 2 months after 9/11, so that he had to throw in a pro-America song, which, fine, fair enough, but I don't know, it feels kind of doesn't fit what the album's going for, and it's kind of cheesy and lame, which, Paul unfortunately had a knack of at this time. And my next three are pretty decent, but I'm still not hot on them. Uh, my fourth least favorite. I'm not to the numbering. I don't care. It's the Wings debut, which is just called Wings. It's okay. It's a good start. Not too exciting. It's just very low key, not very exciting. Just a test the waters type sound. There's some stupid stuff on here. Like there's one song called Bip Bop, which is just Linda and Paul saying Bip Bop in like a hick voice for like almost 5 minutes. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but no, no, that's not album material. Um, the title track's pretty good, and Some People Will Never Know is also pretty good, but the rest, it's fine. Tomorrow's also pretty decent too, but it's not interesting enough to warrant a listen through. Like, you hear it once, fine. It's not gonna, ruin your day, but it's nothing spectacular either. And my next pick is one also from the 2000s. It's I believe the name is, sorry, he has too many albums, and I'm forgetting the names of his latter half. 1 second. There we go. My next one is Memory Almost Full from '07. Pretty good. It's not bad, just not, again, not very exciting to me. Dance Tonight, cool little pop track for what it is. That Was Me's all right. And just decent songs most of all, but like, it doesn't really do it for me that much. Like, not a bad album really, but just not a sound. It's just not that exciting, which, unfortunately is a lot of Paul's career. But when he was great, he was the best. But when he was decent or below decent, you could feel it. You could really feel it. And my next album is one I heard the other day and was pleasantly surprised, but I still wasn't crazy about it. But still a decent record overall. It's Off the Ground from '93. It's Quentin Tarantino's favorite record, I'm sure. It's yeah, it's an improvement from his '80s output. He's back with the guitar, back with more traditional instrumentation that he's good at, and not the latter half 20th century tech, gated reverb and keyboards. That stuff he's not great with. But acoustic and drums and piano, he's got it. Cool songs on here. I actually kind of dig the title track. It's a nice little rockin' opening. Looking for Changes is kind of lame, but it's a good song. He writes it's a song about animals and like testing on animals. It's like cool. Sure. It's fun. Biker Like an Icon's all right. Mistress and Maid, Golden Earth Girl, good tunes, but not very exciting. It's fine. It's the most okay McCartney album of the bunch. Not, what do you call it? It was he was on the right track, but still wasn't there yet, but he got back on his feet after this. It took a while, but he did eventually. I believe that's my 6.
Believe so.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. I think that we share two.
Only
So
2?
yeah,
Oh
we
man.
have some differences already. Um, we share the bottom though. Press to Play by a mile is his worst record. Just straight up, this album is pretty much hot garbage. After Stranglehold, it devolves into a pathetic attempt for Paul to do this sort of pop sound, almost new wavy, but he fails on pretty much every level. It's almost interesting how terrible a lot of this material is. Press and Angry are the worst parts of it for me. Just incredibly little redeeming about this project at all. 1.5 stars, and I'd go lower if not for Stranglehold. Harvey from a couple of episodes ago, he fucking loves McCartney, so he's watching in with us. He just messaged Press to Play or Pull It. They're both really dog shit. I go slightly Press to Play because Pull It's a 1 star album for me, but both just terrible. 21. I know this may be the one that we have the biggest disagreement on. I'm going Egypt Station. I have very little to say about this record. I think it's terribly too long and it lacks much in the way of standout tracks. I like one song and I really hate another song, but the rest of it is just really mediocre. Bayou is genuinely one of the worst songs I've ever heard. It's if you want Paul McCartney to make an HAR song, I mean, there you go. I thought that was Rivers Cuomo's job, but I don't know how much better Paul is than him at this point. So I do think Confidant's all right, but it's not enough to save the record. Normally something this mediocre would just get 2.5 stars, but Fa Yu pushes it into the 2-star range. This is a poor record in my opinion. 20, another one I think we're going to disagree on. I have McCartney 3. I just don't think that this record's very good. It feels like he tried doing some of what he did on New, but his voice is already incredibly weaker in my opinion, and the songs just simply aren't there at this point in time. I feel bad picking on who's at this point a much older man, but his voice just straight up isn't good on this or Egypt Station. And while there's not any terrible songs on this record, it lacks really anything worthwhile, in my opinion. It's a high 2 stars, but still 2 stars nonetheless. Next up, I have Off the Ground, and this one's fine. Generally speaking, it's just really mediocre. It's the most mellow Paul ever gets, bordering on adult contemporary at a lot of points. And while none of them are bad, and there are some highlights. I like the title track, and I thought Peace in the Neighborhood was good. But for the most part, it's just really boring. I have it 2.5 stars. It's okay, but there's little reason to return to it. This next one is my biggest hot take. I know some people agree with me. Maybe I wouldn't have it this low. Number 18, I have McCartney 2. I don't think that this record is bad, but it stumbles to being decent. This comes just after the ending of Wings, and it's at the start of the 80s, and Paul is starting to experiment a bit with new wave. This record has a bunch of vocoders and synthesizers, and it just doesn't work with the songs that he provides here. With the opening track being the biggest messed up, Temporary Secretary, just fucking bizarre to be a Paul McCartney song. This is gonna kill Harvey, but I wish like Lou Reed did it instead, because then it'd at least be kind of cool. Um, there are some highs on it though. On the Way is good. I absolutely loved the track Waterfalls. If the record was like that, I thought it would be superb. Um, and Nobody Knows was solid. I think the record closes out fairly nicely with One of These Days, but a lot of the time, pretty much all of the McCartney records, they just feel incredibly aimless to me. And while it has some strong highs, I really only enjoy about half of this record. It gets a low 3 stars. We're inching up into decent territory here. At number 17, I have Pipes of Peace. This record's a bit of a mixed bag, in my opinion. The opener's okay, but I think that the record starts out pretty strong with Say 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 with Michael Jackson, as well as The Other Me. I also enjoyed So Bad, The Man, and Average Person, but most of this is just generic, boring 80s cheesy pop record. It doesn't get bad, but there's little reason for me to want to return to it. I do think that it works as a better full listen than something like McCartney 2, though. Still only at 3 stars, though. Decent.
Wow. Fair enough with some of the picks. Press to Play is still bad. Talk Talk is my opinion the biggest offender on that record. Not a fan of your Maca 3 and Maca 2 placements, but fair enough. We'll get to that when we get to that. Yeah, these albums onward I think are pretty decent, but still not my cup of McCartney. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. My number 6 is the second album from Wings. A much bigger improvement over Wildlife, which is the debut for Wings. It's not. I called it something else. I believe I called it Wings, but I call it. It's Wildlife. Sorry. Yeah. My next pick is Red Rose Speedway from '73. Again, it's a step up. I think it's pretty good. It's like a 3.5 for me, but still not. We're still not there yet. It's got a much better sound than the first album. He's going back to his raga influences, his time in India, and it's pretty primo. My Love's great. Live and Let Die, obviously a classic. Do I need to hear it all the time? No. But you know what? Even if it wasn't on the album, it's associated heavily with the album. Should it be? Probably not. But you know what? It's a good song. Little Lamb Dragonfly, also love. Loop, First Indian on the Moon, pretty good song as well. And I even like the medley at the end. But aside from that, it's all right. It's just decent, good. It's a good start to his career outside of the Beatles, but aside from that, it's okay. I'm not gonna crank it on anytime soon. Same thing with the next one. Still pretty good, but it's still we're not there yet. It's Pipes of Peace. His '83 album, and it's good. It's all right. It's known for one big song, "Say Say Say" with Michael Jackson. Awesome, fantastic song, and the title track's pretty good too. And the other song he did with Michael's pretty good. The Man. Everything else is all right. Uh, this is the maybe the beginnings of his '80s cheese that I'm not a fan of. There was a little bit of that on McCartney too, but I think McCartney 2 is much better. But still it's an okay it's still an okay record. Not the worst I've heard, but I'm not gonna put it on anytime soon. And my next pick is one I also heard today, Wings' London Town. And this one's not bad either. It's pretty okay. It actually starts off pretty good with the title track, which is the only song people give a shit up that people give a shit off this record. Probably not, but I don't know. I don't know I don't know the London Town fandom that well. But the title track's good. I love Backwards Traveler and I'm Carrying. Those are good songs. And Cufflink, I actually enjoyed that. And with Little Luck's pretty good too. But it's not bad. It just kind of it's that mediocre Wings record that unfortunately people associate too heavily with Wings. People don't really give them too much credit. Some people do, but a lot of them just kind of turn their noses up at some of their stuff because they think it's bland, dad rock type stuff. And this album kind of proves that, but I don't think that's really the case. But if people were to think that, with London Town, I couldn't really blame them. But good record. It's all right. And my next pick, sorry, I'm moving along. It's Tug of War '82. Ebony and Ivory's on it. That's an all right song. This is a good like '80s pop record. Like it's just very like I don't know. It's easy to listen to. It's fun, but it's still nothing that exciting. I mean, the title track's good. Somebody Who Cares is nice, and obviously Ebony and Ivory I mentioned with good old Stevie, I believe, who's also a genius, but we'll get to him another day. So yeah, decent record. I like it. Um, Tug of War Onward, I regard pretty highly. I believe 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. My next pick is gonna be Back to the Egg. This is a good record. I dig it quite a bit. It's fun. The production's pretty on point. Everyone's playing good. I like it. It's a good finale to Wings, which I believe this was their last record, if I'm not. Yeah, it was. Good songs on here. Arrow Through Me I like a lot. Winter Roses pretty nice. And Getting Closer. Lots of pretty good deep cuts on here. But again, I gotta say it, not my peak McCartney for me. I got like it's still pretty good. I'll put it on from time to time if I think about it. But again, not my Mount Rushmore McCartney albums, if that makes sense. But yeah, good record. I'd put it on if I was you. And my other pick, I'm not keeping count. I'm sorry, I'll keep count near the end, I'm sure. But yeah, Venus and Mars is next. Pretty solid record. Again, these albums onward I like. I think they're good. I'm just not gonna they're not gonna be on my constant shuffle for my life. But yeah, this is a fun record. I actually have this on download because I have a YouTube Red. I can download videos. And yeah, this is an album I'll put on again for sure. It's fun. It's got a nice, smooth sound, but also a very like pop rock fun sound. Uh, my favorite song on here is actually Magneto and Titanium Man because it's just funny. Like they're singing about Marvel characters, and it's cute. It's fun. Letting Go's good. The title track is great. I like that pretty well. Um, Medicine Jar and Listen to What the Man Said are also good. And the rest range from decent to good. And not again, just it's just not a Wings album I think of or a McCartney album I think of that much. But I still like it. I think it's quite good. And my last of my six, I believe. One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, actually, sorry. Venus and Mars is my last pick. Pretty solid records. Of the ones I mentioned, but again, not there yet. Back to you, Adri.
Okay. Um, we have one pretty massive disagreement in that list, but for the most part, it's not too crazy. Um, I'll get this out of the way. 100% agree on Wings. They are fucking cheesy as shit, to the point to where they kind of annoy the hell out of me. It just so happens most of his best material was made during that era, so
It's like Wings. I think Wings is a good band, but some of their like more mid stuff is what people remember them for, and they think they're like a corny like a boomer band.
I don't even know if I would go that far. I don't think Wings are that talented of a band.
I
Like
mean,
if
they're not great, but they're pretty good, I think.
if anybody else fronted the band of Wings, that group of musicians would be nothing. That they only got big because of Paul McCartney to me, and that's kind of the issue I have. But we'll get into that later because there are some Wings records very high on this list for me. So,
I think I know.
16, record you already talked about, Flowers in the Dirt. Uh, the 80s did McCartney pretty dirty. This is a step up from Press to Play, but still incredibly flawed. Very rooted in 80s productions. Synths on this record are ungodly cheesy, and you could tell that the record is filled with a fuck ton of different producers. There's like 7 different people that had their hand in the studio on this one, and it's crazy, which leads to the track listing feeling pretty bizarre. Despite that, there is some great songs here. My Brave Face is a strong opener, like the duet with Costello, You Want Her Too, and Distractions is up there for one of my favorite 80s McCartney songs. But overall, it's just decent. I have it at 3 stars. If I had to compare the two sort of collaborative records, because Costello did one that he kind of worked with McCartney on in some ways, I would definitely take Spike over this if I had to pick one of them. 15, I'm going with New. It's not very revolutionary for McCartney. New, he seems to be playing off of a lot of modern indie rock styles. Reminds me a good bit of The Next Day by David Bowie. And that's the main reason I only have this one at 3 stars, because I don't think Paul, especially at this age, feels very natural doing most of these styles. He just comes across like he's trying really hard to be hip and like he's trying to be this cool guy. I just don't buy it. Like, I get that from David Bowie because Bowie was always really innovative and doing whatever he could. McCartney, well, her less so. But musically, I think that this is one of his most interesting. My favorite tracks would be Queenie Eye, Early Days, Looking at Her, and Closer Road. It's just decent, but I feel like if somebody like, say, David Bowie made this record, it would be far more interesting for me. And that's my last 3 star record. All of these other ones I would call good. I don't know if that means that I genuinely like them though. 14 for me, I have Back to the Egg. It's good. It comes across as pretty. This is like as generic as cheesy as Wings got, and I'm not overly impressed by anything across this record. It's to me a less inspired set of tracks than their other works. Despite that, like every Wings record, the playing is solid, and the highs of highs are very good. Again and again and again, Arrow Through Me, To You, and Baby's Request are all very strong. I have this one at 3.5 stars. It's good, but very unremarkable. This is probably another one of my more contentious picks. This is my next one. Actually, my next three. 13, I have McCartney. McCartney 1 is really directionless, but it's still a good listen. It's really strange for McCartney, who up to this point had been rather calculated and really knew what he wanted to do with all the Beatles albums. On this one, it kind of just seems like he's throwing out a dartboard and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. To his credit, this is a very strong testament as to how good and how talented of a musician he is, doing everything himself. It's most highlighted in the song Karina Core. Despite that, I don't think it really gets going for me until Valentine's Day, and Maybe I'm Amazed is by far the best track on this record. Overall, though, it's a solid listen, 3.5 stars. It's fine. Number 12, another contentious one, I have Flaming Pie. This is often regarded as Paul's big comeback after the lacking era of Pipes to Peace to Off the Ground. This came out not long after Beatles Anthology, and he was working closely with my savior, Jeff Lynne. And on paper, this should be a slam dunk top 5 for me. He didn't write great songs. Nothing is outright bad, but aside from the highlights here, I feel like there's very little remarkable. There's also a bit of blues influence across this record, and it doesn't lend very well to his style of writing. Even in the Beatles, I think that their bluesy stuff is by far their weakest material. Flaming Pie is good, and the production is great because it's Jeff Lynne, and he can do no wrong, in my opinion. I just feel like it lacks a true highlighted song to really push it into the higher leagues of Paul's catalog. 3.5 stars. Then number 11 for me, I got London Town. It's not terrible. You can tell that this is when Wings were starting to falter, when too many tracks and the highs aren't exactly to the peaks of Wings prior. The favorites were the title track, Cafe on the Left Bank, I'm Carrying Girlfriend, and Over Your Children. Not a ton to say here. If you know pop rock from the 70s, you can kinda in your mind picture what Wings sound like. Generic band that has Paul McCartney. So it's good. It's not anything outstanding. And that's my next batch 6. Moving forward, we're gonna go one at a time.
Because I forgot I muted the Zoom mic. Yeah, good list. I agree with a good chunk. A couple I'd put higher, but we'll get there when we get there. These next batch of records, I either like well or really like, but this is the one I like the least of the really good portion. It's Egypt Station. I think I know you don't like it, but I kind of dig the sound he's been going for in the past, let's say, decade. Is more indie sound. He's surprisingly good at it. I mean, I know, yeah, his voice is the issue. He doesn't sound as good as he used to. And age is just that's how it happens. Sometimes you even he clearly still has it, but he just doesn't have he doesn't have it 100% anymore. And this album kind of proves that. There are some crap songs on here. Fuck You is awful. What was he thinking? That's no. Cut that. Get rid of it. And there's a couple other ones. Hand in Hand's okay, and People Want Peace is very sappy, but it's cute. And Station 2 is just like what? It's opening station and Station 2 is just like, you know, they're not even really songs. But the rest is pretty decent. I don't know. Come On to Me, Happy with You. These are pretty good tunes. If he had a stronger voice, this would be a lot higher. But again, not really his fault. He's been singing for pretty much his entire life. His voice is gonna sound iffy to bad, but you know what? He works through it, and it's a good sounding record overall. And my next pick, I believe, is sorry. My next pick is Wings at the Speed of Sound. It's a good album. I think it's good. Let Him In, it's a classic. It's really good. And Silly Love Songs, also a classic. and it's kind of a mess. Like it's very messy. Oh, hey, you have it. Nice. It's pretty messy at times because like I believe every band member does a song. It's been a while since I've heard it, so excuse me. But yeah, it's a bit like messy in structure. Some songs are stronger than others. Paul has the stronger songs, but some of the other guys do decent work too. Linda, not so much, but you know, she's Linda. You can't be mad at her. She's a sweetheart. But yeah, good record. I like it. One of the better Wings records, that's for sure. And my next pick, I have a lot higher than my lovely co-host. It's McCartney 1, his debut. It's good. Again, same problem. It's kind of a hodgepodge. There's not really a structure to it. And a lot of the songs on here are just kind of Paul fucking around in the studio, let's be honest here. But the songs that are great are spectacular. I'm a big fan of yeah, McCartney 1, good album. Again, kind of a hodgepodge of ideas. It's just Paul screwing around the studio. But some of those songs that came out of his fucking around were pretty solid. Like maybe I'm amazed is like it's perfect. Like come on, it's a classic for a reason. And I rather enjoy that would be something. I kind of like Paul when he does his weird like folky blues thing. Not all the time, but I think it's fun here. I like Junk as well. Ooh, You's not bad, and Teddy Boy's good as well. And it ends strong with Crean a Crore, but you know, maybe I'm amazed kind of carries the album. Let's be honest here. It's the big selling point. It's a perfect song, like one of the best of the 20th century. Like, and I mean that wholeheartedly. But that's not that the other songs aren't strong. They're pretty strong, but that's kind of maybe I'm amazed is the selling point. Aside from that, you give or take, but still pretty good. I like it a lot. Um, and the next one is new. I believe from 2013. Is it 2013? 2015? Whatever. 2010s doesn't matter. Yeah. Again, this is the indie rock pop sound that I like from Paul, but I think done better than Egypt Station. And his voice is pretty decent here. Like you can still hear the age, but it's not as bad as it could be because it actually gets worse. But that's besides the point. We'll get to that when we get to that. So I like Save Us. Queenie Eye's pretty solid. I actually generally like all the songs on here, just some I like more than others. But yeah, strong record. One of the better uh latter half Paul records. And my next pick onward, these are my favorites by far. McCartney 2 is my next pick. I love McCartney 2. McCartney 2 is great. So good. It opens up strong with Coming Up. Like, come on, this is the song that got John Lennon back into music, allegedly. I don't there's a quote somewhere about fucking a pig, but I don't know if that's a real quote. We'll see. Maybe someone can confirm in the comments. But yeah, start strong with Coming Up. Like, come on. It's just such a fun song. And Temporary Secretary, like, come on. It's stupid. It's really funny. Like I die laughing every time I hear this song, but it's not one you can like I don't blame you if you want to skip it. I like On the Way as well. Pretty solid guitar, pretty solid riffs and instrument playing. And I think the sound overall is just why I like it. It's very new wavy. It's that early 80s sound that you know by heart without even thinking about it. Like 1980 new wave punk, you got it easy. This is like kind of that, that Talking Heads type sound. That I think he does good work. I kind of wish he stuck with it instead of going the 80 like the generic pop shit that he would do in the 80s, but missed opportunity. But yeah, great record. I really dig it. I think it's pretty damn good. Is it? I can see why some people don't like it. It's a sign of things to come, but I think it's pretty darn good. All right. And my next pick, the beginnings of my top five, it's Flaming Pie. This album is. I also heard this today. Now that now that I think about it, and I'm shocked. Actually, hold on, story time. I tried listening to it before a couple months ago, but Spotify just crashed when I was listening to it on the same song too, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I just didn't like. I liked what I heard, but I just didn't listen to it for a while after that. And then I heard it for this video, and I'm shocked at how good it is. Uh, I think it's mostly due to Jeff Lynne. If he wasn't on here, I, I'm not just saying that to like, be nice to my co-host, but yeah, Jeff Lynne is a amazing addition here. He does the same thing with Harrison as well, where that record, half the reason it's as good as it is because Jeff Lynne's on it. And but I think this is much better than that than Cloud Nine. But we'll get to that at a different time next week maybe. Um, First song is good. Song we were singing is great. If You Wanna, I actually really like. Some Days is kind of nice and mellow. It's not as strong as the first couple tracks, but I think it's fun. Young Boy. I'm not a fan of Steve Miller anyway, so yeah, skip. Um, Title track's great, and I love Coleco Skies. Like that's a Paul only song, one of the few on this record because everyone else is helping him along the way. Ringo as well. But yeah, fucking great song. Very kind of unique style than what he does. And one of my other favorite tracks on here is Beautiful Night. The big collab song, with Jeff Lynne and Ringo. Good stuff. Ringo's on point here with the drums. Jeff Lynne obviously is half the reason the song sounds great in the first place. But yeah, overall, freaking solid record. And one of my favorite Paul records. Is that, yeah, it's I get why people don't give modern McCartney a chance because, when an older artist goes on for that long, they tend to become terrible. And Paul's has had his, oh boy, he's had his valleys along with his peaks, but I think he proves himself here that he still has it, even if he starts losing it, he still has that old McCartney charm we love, or some of us love. But yeah, that's my number six.
Yeah, to get to the heights of Paul McCartney, you're basically climbing Mount Everest because there's so much fucking shit in this pile. Like, I didn't go too low, but the experience of binging these records is what killed him for me. Because I don't think I would have been as harsh on him as a whole if I was taking it closer to like, I was doing 4 records a month or something.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been way better, but I pretty much did the entirety of this catalog over a month and a half. And to be fair, I doubt I would have liked some of these records anyway. They're pretty shit. But yeah. Maybe I'll go back to some of them at some point. Probably not. We'll see how it goes. Number 10 for me, I got Venus and Mars. This is a very tricky record. In some ways, it was my favorite Wings album. Songs are very strong, and there isn't very much low lights. But this is the most crazily overblown 70s excess record I think I've ever heard. It's almost like too sugary of a candy, like you're putting a chocolate ganache over top of a chocolate cake with a chocolate buttercream icing as well. It is the richest shit you can ever have to me, and it's just too much. I almost felt sick listening to it, even though I did enjoy it. A 3.5 stars. It's good, but incredibly overblown. Number 9, I have Driving Rain. This was the most difficult record for me to place in the catalog, as it's incredibly different from everything that came before it, being far darker, almost experimental at points. For one thing, it's way too long. Despite me finding it to be a cool direction, the length of the record really kills it. And I don't think it's his best crop of songs, But the overall atmosphere and direction of the record are just really fascinating, in my opinion. It's incredibly dark, it's really moody, almost noisy at points. But it has Paul McCartney singing over it. It's just such a bizarre dichotomy that finds me equally intrigued, but kind of disgusted. It's a high 3.5 stars. It's good, but fucking happy-go-lucky Paul man singing over this stuff just doesn't do it for me. Once again, like, this was, I don't know, somebody cooler, maybe it'd work. Number 8, I have Memory Almost Full. Paul ended the aughts pretty strong for me. Well, it's nothing crazy. It does continue the less cutesy, less Beatles-inspired music of his 90s work. At points, it's a bit heavier than Chaos and Creation, and typically it's a lot more pop-driven. I feel like Paul ended up creating with this record his best balance of the experimentation and pop that he was doing since Tug of War on this record. Despite that, the running order is pretty inconsistent. It often plays 2 songs that I like, then 1 or 2 that I was less into. It doesn't kill the record, but it definitely does harm it. My favorites were Gratitude, Feet in the Clouds, and House of Wax. This is a strong 3.5 for me, and my last 3.5 stars. I have 7 Paul McCartney records I would call very good, which, based upon how I was talking about, might seem weird, but I don't know. This is how they played for me. Number 7, I have Wildlife. Notably, this is a bit of a step down from the record before it, but it's definitely a unique one in the McCartney canon. Notably, this record features a lot more jamming from the newly formed band Wings. For once, they don't sound like a really lame 70s rock band because they're barely a band. With that being said, um, many songs here run over the 5-minute mark, and I generally do enjoy the approach that he's going for. Feels like a band getting acquainted with one another and just growing into a unit across the record. It's very solid throughout, but it doesn't have very many highs, without much that I would call bad. My favorite songs would be Love is Strange, Wildlife, Some People You Know, Tomorrow, and my favorite was Dear Friend. Overall, it's 4 stars. I'd say it's really good, but it's nothing great. Number 6, I have pulled out the vinyl earlier because I have this one, Wings at the Speed of Sound. While nothing revolutionary, I would say that this is a pretty good record overall. It feels like the most fun Wings record up to this point, and while it's very cheesy, like Venus and Mars was, I feel like it better blended with McCartney's overall songwriting and the actual musicality of it. The running order, however, is very strange, notably with Silly Love Songs coming in the middle before the just terrible Cook of the House. That is when Paul goes a step too far, or whoever the hell wrote that shit. I forget. It was god awful. There's plenty of great material here, though. Let 'Em In, She's My Baby, and Beware My Love all being genuinely great songs. It's a solid 4 stars. I could see myself potentially going back to this one. Am I probably going to do it? No, but I could see it happening. And yeah, that being said, we're going to get into our top 5 now, which, just going over it now, we have 3 points of overlap, which is more than I would have expected given how this has gone.
Yeah. Um, pretty impressed. Wildlife that high, and but you know what? I can see the appeal. It's got that early 70s acoustic thing that people are fond of. I'm fond of it too, but I think it just kind of All right, we're in the we're in the top half now. Are we still doing the big chunk of records or just one? Just one. All right, cool. I prepared for this, I swear. My next pick, my number 4, might raise some eyebrows, and I don't blame you, because it's new Paul, very new Paul, 2 years ago Paul, in fact. But I like it a lot. It's so great. It's McCartney 3 from 2020, the COVID album. Yeah, I just killed our co-host with my take, but half the reason I like it is because I heard it uh is because I heard it at a very bad time in my life. but I'm not gonna get into it, but it's over. But yeah, this album got me out of my funk. It's so good. It's just so much fun. Open strong with Winter Bird, Long-tailed Winter Bird, I think. What's the name? I'm good with names, yeah. Long-tailed Winter Bird. Cool little acoustic. It's a very pronounced sound too. I don't know how to explain it. Like if you've heard an alternative rock record or an indie rock record from the past, let's say 3 years, you'll probably know the sound I'm talking about, but I think Paul does a good job with it. And second track this is already the best song on the album, like by far. It's Find My Way, the one with that creepy ass music video of young Paul. Y'all know the one I'm talking about. This song is great. It's so much fun. It's a classic, fun Paul pop song. Paul pop song. Is the age is there, but I think it kind of I don't know. I think it kind of adds to the song. It makes it more charming in a way. I don't know how to explain it. And I think he does good vocal harmonies with the other singers. I believe Beck is a co-singer. Yeah, I think he is. I don't know. I don't really care. Either way, good song. The next two, not great. Pretty Boys and Women and Wives. The voice is the issue here. He sounds terrible. Women and Wives especially. He tries this this like Eddie Vedder type thing, like that really deep like yeah, women and wives type voice, and it does not work. I get it, he's an old man, but don't sing like that, Paul. Don't even attempt it. But yeah, after that it picks up. I like Laboratory Lil. It sounds like an old '60s Paul song, like a Sgt. Pepper era type song. Not as good as a song from that era, obviously, but it kind of has that feel. And DT Feeling I like as well. Pretty long. You could shave off 2 minutes and it'd be a lot better, but I like that song. And sliding up to Winterbird When Winter Comes is a good time. Yeah, I like this record. The production is solid. The playing is pretty sweet, and I don't know. It's a nice makes me feel good. The voice is the issue on a lot of the songs, but I think his voice works more than it doesn't. But on the album, but when it doesn't work, you can hear it pretty bad. But yeah, I like this record a lot. It's a very high 4-star album, I believe.
Okay. I can't be too upset with you. You seem to have some sort of sentimental value to it. I heard it like I don't know, a couple hours ago. It's pretty shit. But if you like it, that's cool. I'm happy for you. Was that your 5 or your 4? Because I stopped at my 6.
Oh, yeah, mic was muted. Sorry.
Okay,
I think that was my 4.
it's fine. I'll do my 5 and my 4 now.
I probably miscounted. My bad.
All good. It is what it is. At number 5, shocked you had this one so low. Red Rose Speedway. Despite me enjoying Wildlife and finding it to be an interesting record in the McCartney canon, admittedly this shit's all over it. The band of Wings is a lot more fully formed across this record, a lot less jamming, and they've opted for the more pop rock style that you'll get from Sir Paul McCartney, and it's really strong. My Love is great, same with Get on the Right Thing and Single Pigeon. I love Linda's backing vocals across this album. They complement Paul incredibly well, and the medley at the end shows that the band was able to experiment with longer songs than before, but still have a bit more of pop sensibilities and the memorability of the songs. It just simply isn't there on Wildlife, despite me enjoying it. Overall, I think it's a really strong record. Shows that Paul still has really strong talents for pop for the first time since Abbey Road. This one's a pretty decent 4-star record for me. And I think from my number 5 up, I maybe said that with number 6, but number 5 up, these are the records that I actually care about. Like I may rate some of these other records higher, but like they exist. Number 4 for me. This one, I could see it potentially being your number 1. If not, it's gonna be your number 3, and I'm gonna look stupid as shit. Number 4, I got Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. I'm very, in pretty much every way, this is Paul's most creative record since Tug of War. Features some of the same experimenting he was doing on the studio and Driving Rain, makes it a far tighter overall project. And if I had to be honest, I'm probably wrong about this, but I don't really give a shit. I feel like Paul dramatically is helped by having somebody there to help him, and Nigel Godrich is here, well known for being the Radiohead dude. Oh, does he help this record? Yeah, I feel like he was able to take a little bit of charge on this record, sort of force Paul to focus a bit more than he did in the past, and make a really good record again. Like Driving Rain, though, it's one of his more darker outings, but unlike that record, you get a little bit more glimpses of the more fun side of Paul. It's a great blend. It's a great blend of the obvious Beatles throwback sound with a lot more of the darker themes that he was wanting to write about, like a perverted take on something like Help. My favorites on here would be the three-song stretch of Promise to You Girl, This Never Happened Before, and Anyway. And while still not a great record, this is Paul's best in a very long time, and shows that even though I don't really like him very much, he's still an incredibly talented musician, even through his age. I give it 4 stars, and I do want to say this now. Even though I don't really care that much for Paul as a writer or as like a song craft person guy, he is an incredibly talented musician. I can't argue he's not one of the great multi instrumentalists in rock music. I just wish that he made better music to accompany that.
Fair enough. You are so right about what's the album Chaos and Creation. Nigel Goodrich is a god of production, and that's half the reason it sounds as good as it does. But I do think Paul does a good job on it as well. And speaking of Chaos and Creation, yeah, that's my next favorite. It's my number three. Yeah, it's my number three. This album is superb. It's so good. Open strong with the fine line and how kind of you. Pretty chill Paul tunes. I like this album's just production vibe. It's very like kind of mellow, but in like a more relaxed way, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of moody, but also like very chill at the same time. And I think this album proves that Paul is still a genius. This song in particular, Jenny Wren, this is a classic Paul tune. Like this is a song. He's perfect for it. This is his song. He I don't know how to explain it. I think it's a perfect song. One of my favorites. It's just I don't know. It just sounds really good. You got to hear it to know what I'm talking about. But it's classic Paul if there ever was such a thing. And the rest of the track is good too. Sorry, the rest of the album is good too. Um, Too Much Rain's okay. That's the only one I'm not crazy about, but I like the rest a lot. Jenny Wren, I think, is the big hit for me, but I think it's a pretty great album overall. And yeah, it's a it's a solid record. Proves Paul is still, while kind of getting out of the game, he still has it a little bit. He does good work.
Alrighty. Yeah, I can't fault you too much for that. It's a damn solid record. So glad he got somebody to help him produce it. Number 3, we're getting close. We have one shared in our top 2 because my number 3 is Band on the Run. This is another pretty big step forward from Red Rose Speedway. The playing across this record is great, combined with the best straight ahead pop material. Paul was able to put the tapes into the Beatles. Many of the songs here work well because of the incredible build of instrumentation throughout the tracks. The closer in 935, 85 is the best example of that. And of course, the title track is excellent, but my favorite songs were Jet and Bluebird, which I just love. This record's a classic for a reason. I can't really say anything bad about it, despite me not liking Paul. I can't deny its greatness. I have it at 4.5 stars. I would call this a great record. Although, when did this come out? 75? I still don't think it did crack. Oh, 73. Yeah, still probably wouldn't crack my top five of the year, but probably a top 10 record of the year.
All right. Yeah, Band on the Run's pretty superb, but we're not there yet because my next pick is the 1971 classic record, underrated from that year. Well, back in the day it was. Now it's considered a classic. It's Ram. It's his real debut in my opinion. McCartney one's good. Ram's great. Starts off super strong with Too Many People. Um, the song that John Lennon heard, thought it was about him and Yoko, and wrote the song "How Do You Sleep," which he took like one part of his song. He took like one sentence from Too Many People, and in response wrote like a 5 minute song. Classic John. What a dick. Like what a loser. It's a good song though, but damn, come on, that's just petty. Three Legs is good. It's a silly little just silly song about a dog with three legs. It's cute. Ramon and Dear Boy are great. Dear Boy is the stronger of the two, but Ramon's pretty solid as well. And then you got the big hit, or big-ish hit, more of a cult hit, but it was a hit. Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey. Not sure how you feel about it. I think you like it, but I remember the first time I heard this was a year ago, and I was shocked. I never heard a Paul song this good in years. I thought because before I got into Paul, I thought he was just like an okay solo artist, but he was only great in the Beatles. This song made me reconsider that. I don't know if you think I don't know. I think you don't regard him that highly either way, but yeah, yeah, Paul's a genius. I see that now. I can see why people don't think so because he's kind of overplayed the shit, and I can see why people are sick of him, but I like him a lot still. Heart of the Country, I love. It's a nice, uh, folksy tune that Paul is somehow really good at, but he shouldn't be because, considering how he lived and like where he grew up. Monk Fairy Moon Delight, I also love. It's a crazy ass song. It's kind of ahead of its time in a way, but anyway. Yeah, that's how I feel. Ram is a classic record. It's probably a 5 for me. Like a very 4.9, I guess. It's fucking superb.
Yeah. Man, we are just never going to agree. This is what the third, fourth episode that we're doing together. Well, I think this is going to be the fourth one going up, but it's going to be the third one. I assume we agree on George Harrison, but we'll see. Number two is going to be Tug of War. I was pretty convinced that my top two were going to be pretty set in stone by the point that I got to this record, but Tug of War blew me away. Maybe it's because of how neutral I was to McCartney 2, because of how much I was dreading the rest of this even by that point. But this record is just excellent. Notably, the first half of him taking full advantage of the '80s, almost sounding like what you would think an '80s Beatles album would be. He's using a lot of R&B influence on the amazing duet with Stevie Wonder on "What's That You're Doing." I love the title track, and "Here Today" is just stunning. The only song I didn't really care for here was "Ballroom Dancing," which was just a bit pointless. I even like "Ebony and Ivory" a decent bit. I don't get why people are so averse to that track. But yeah, for me, this album is great, and I can see it growing with me even more on re-listens. I hate having to give him this like, you did it, but it's like it's a great record, 4.5 stars, and I really really enjoyed it. I actually want to go back to this one.
Fair enough. It's a nice record. I just prefer I don't prefer that style of Paul, but I think that that style of Paul. That's not a phrase anyone should say. Can be good, and that album kind of proves it. Still number 2. That's insane, but you know what? I'll give it to you. It's fine.
It's not that crazy. He made like 3 legitimately good albums.
He did, and that is a good album, but
Yeah.
I never really considered it that high of a watermark outside of the big hit, Ebony and Ivory. But you know what? Fair enough.
I think that maybe it's just like it's so dramatically better than the rest of his 80s work for me that it's like maybe I overrated it a bit. That's definitely the one I need to go back to the most. But yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot for what it's worth.
Fair enough. All right, and my number 1, it's Band on the Run. His his only album with wings that actually fucking matters. Let's be real here. Red Rose Speedway, whatever aside, this is the one this is the one you need to hear. A title track is a masterpiece. It's just ridiculously good for no reason. I don't know what the song's about. I don't think it's about anything to be honest, but it's really fun. And then Jet's also great with that just crazy ass like was that a tuba? I don't know. It sounded that crazy ass in the beginning. It's just really good. I like Bluebird as well. Nice mellow track. And Miss Vanderbilt and Let Me Roll It, primo. Um, Ammonia I love as well. And my favorite on the album, 1985 or 1985. What a great ending. Oh my God. Just out of the blue with that cool piano opener, which I'm assuming is from Paul because he does piano as well, but I don't know. I don't think it matters. Sounds great. Production's on point. Singing is solid. Everyone's playing at top form. Yeah, this is perfect, Paul. 5 stars. Great time. One of my favorites. Probably one of my favorites from that year as well. Great record.
Nice. This is the point where I really have to concede. I've been shitting on Paul a lot, um, but even I can't deny Ram's a masterpiece. I mean, what can I even say about this record? The immediate thing for me to point out would be the production, notably on the string work, which I think is just immaculate. Vocally as well, Paul and Linda are just amazing. And as an album, this is maybe my favorite album as a whole Paul has worked on. Um, we'll see. I have 2 more Beatles albums to listen to, but solid chance. We'll leave it there. Um, this has closer overt ties to the sound of the Beatles than McCartney 1 does, but they're being pushed more into like a pop overload here. Songs like Too Many People, Uncle Albert, and The Backseat of My Car could be argued to be highlights of Paul regardless of where he was working. And that undersells the other amazing cuts such as Three Legs, Ram On, and my personal favorite, Moonberry Monk Delight. I don't like when Paul gets super goofy, super random, like super all over the place. But I feel like on this record, he was able to present it in such a way in which it really works because the musicality is there as well. And just everything around him, it's equally interesting. And it doesn't feel like on the Wings records where he has this generic sound. It's good, but it's so bland to me. Like this, he's actually pushing a bit. He's creating these incredibly interesting musical landscapes that you just simply don't get on most other Paul material. And it allows him to be as goofy as he want, be as random as he want, and it legitimately feel genuine to me. I think that this record is absolutely excellent just across the board. I said in my notes that I need another listen to solidify, but at this point, I hate doing this, but I have to go 5 stars. This is an amazing record.
There you go. I knew you
Yeah,
could do it.
yeah. I didn't.
Yeah.
I expected to stop at 4.5 whenever I first started this, but Ram really floored me.
Yeah, people underestimate Ram.
Yeah.
They did in the 70s as well.
Oh yeah. And again, there may be some manipulation from a certain better Beatle, but we'll talk about that another day.
See, I kind of agree with you at the same time I don't. I think John's a genius as well, but for like 2 albums and like half of a third. But whereas I think Paul has more good records, but I still think John's pretty
Well,
good.
well,
It
to
just
be fair, Paul has like 3 times the amount of records that John has.
yeah, that's the problem. Unfortunately, John didn't get a chance to
Yeah.
make more good records.
Well, if you want to include the experimental ones, it's only like he has half of the records that Paul has, which
Yeah, and even that, and still, Paul's not even my favorite of the Beatles solo stuff. We'll get to that at
we'll
a
get to
future
that
date.
with Tavi, I
Yeah,
expect.
hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
Paul's great. One of my favorite solo artists. He's kind of fighting for a spot with another person, but I just think he's pretty pretty superb. I can see why he was knighted. Yeah, I think he's a cool guy.
nice. Is that person Billy Ocean?
Yeah, not as good as Billy Ocean, but
True.
no one is. No one is.
Nobody tops the Caribou Queen.
Not
But
even. No.
yeah, as you can tell, I have some issues with Paul McCartney. And I understand they're like solely a me thing. And objectively, like I said before, he's an incredible musician. Even I can't deny that. It's just I feel very rarely he's an artist that connects with me. A lot of the times, especially because of the 80s work and the stuff with Wings, he just seems like he's trying just so hard to like be loved by so many people. And I just want him to create something that speaks more personally of him, which I know simply just isn't really his style of writing. And that's okay, but it just doesn't really resonate with me in the way that it does for others. Despite that, and despite how mean I've been to this man, I don't hate Paul McCartney. I respect him immensely as a musician. He's created some genuinely great records. I just wish that he made way less of them.